So on Steve's car, I have been waiting for Jim, the guy that built the engine, to come over and put on some roller tip rockers that Steve bought. We had a clacking rocker arm on the passenger side. It's actually the second one back from the front. When we started the car up for the first time, it was immediately clacking, and so we shut it down. Jim readjusted it. We started it up. It was still doing it. We took the valve cover back off and messed with it again, and it's still doing it. So anyway, Jim suspected the original old 1964 rocker arms are probably just pretty worn out. Now, I always reuse mine, but I do check the tips that ride on the valves. If there's usually a groove wore in there pretty bad, I'll just get another one. I have a ton of old used stock rocker arms. But anyway, I kind of suspected personally that it was probably a bad lifter because I've had it happen before. But anyway, Jim came over yesterday and put on the rocker arms, and we still have the clack on the same one. It almost sounds like there's one over here as well on the driver's side to me now. But anyway, so we messed with this thing for a couple hours yesterday. I think Jim was here for just about 3 hours because we kept taking the valve covers off and rotating the engine and adjusting and doing all kinds of crap. But anyway, long story longer is I'm going to have to put a set of lifters in it. Jim put comp cams lifters in here. And I remember watching a video from Powell Machine like a year ago, and he was testing lifters from a lot of different companies, and he had actually stated that those were the worst ones. Comp was the worst. So in case you guys don't understand about lifters and camshafts and stuff, I'm going to run you through that. There's only like 1 or 2 manufacturers that make lifters. So like hydraulic for small block Chevy, they are sent out to the different companies like Crane, Comp, whoever gets them. Then they face the end of them. They have to be angle cut on the end of the lifter. Let me get one and I'll show you. All right, so this is a used lifter, hydraulic flat tappet for small block. And anyway, when these are made by a company and then they're sent out to the cam manufacturers, and then the cam manufacturers actually surface the end with an angle. These have to be ground at an angle so it will spin on the camshaft. These are not completely flat. They have to have an angle cut on them. Some companies do their own angles, and what happens is if they're just not cut with an angle very much or not cut at all, they will not spin on the camshaft lobe, and it will start dishing that lifter out, kind of like that one there is. But this is a really old high mileage lifter, so it's actually not bad for a lot of miles. So anyway, that's the cam manufacturers. When they get these from the main company, they do their own angle grind on here. So some companies don't put enough in there, and that's what the guy at Powell Machine was saying, is there wasn't enough of an angle or not a correct angle or something on that. So he didn't recommend comp lifters. Jim doesn't watch social media stuff. He doesn't watch YouTube. He doesn't even text. He's old school. So anyway, he did not see that video, and you know, if I hadn't seen it, I wouldn't have known either. But anyway, I run sealed power lifters is what I run, and that's what Steve ended up buying yesterday from Summit, is sealed power. So that's what lifters are going in there. You know, it really kind of sucks. It's going backwards, but it's just what happens. Sometimes you get into that. I've actually got a rocker arm clacking on mine, and I think mine's probably a bad lifter too, but I have not went back and rechecked my rockers since I built the engine and just bench adjusted them. So I mean, they should be pretty good, but I've had a clack ever since I started it. So it's either one that didn't get quite put there, or I've got a bad lifter as well. So anyway, that's the plan. We got to put new lifters in Steve's engine, which I'll have to pull the intake manifold off the car. So I need to roll it around on number 1. I drained the coolant out yesterday, so all the coolant's drained out of it so I can pull the intake off. But I did not put the new carburetor on yet, and the main reason was I was waiting on Jim to come over here. He didn't give me a day he was coming. He just said he'll come next week. This is what he told me last week. So, and actually, I didn't even know he was showing up that particular day. Yesterday, my wife had a doctor's appointment, and I was going to go with her, and I told her, I said, I don't know if Jim's going to show up or not. And he did. So luckily I stayed home. But anyway, that's why I hadn't changed the carburetor out, because Steve bought an AVS2 Edelbrock to put on here, which is the newer version of the old school Edelbrock. I haven't changed it because this one's already set, the needles are set and everything, and this one we had it running on it. So we know that carburetor is good enough to go ahead and start it and mess with the valves and all that. I didn't want to put a brand new carburetor on and then have issues with stuff. So, you know, the float could have been set, float level could be too high and it'd flood over and all kinds of crap. So I didn't want to compound a situation with more stuff. But anyway, I've got a new wiring harness for the car. Steve did. I actually found the listing at eBay said easy wiring 12 circuit universal harness, and is $147.25, which I thought was a pretty good buy. The guy had 100% positive feedback, and I was like, damn, that's a good price, because at easy wiring at their website it's $170 plus shipping. So Steve bought it from that guy, and he brought it, and this is not an easy wire harness. Let me dig it out and I'll show it to you. So this is the kit that came in. Now these knockoff easy wire harnesses are on eBay and they're around 60 to 70 bucks for this same one right here. So the guy has the listing for an easy wire 12 circuit. This is not an easy wiring. Easy wiring has their logo up here, right here on the top, and it says easy wiring, and this says AT something. I don't even know what that is. But you can't even hardly read the lettering on this fuse panel for what this stuff is. The easy wiring is bright white and you can read it plain as day. So anyway, no doubt this wiring harness will work, and it's a copy of the easy wire. I've just never used one, you know what I mean? I've installed a whole bunch of easy wire kits. Then the instruction packet they give you is just stapled, printed off papers. These are not. Easy Wire gives you a book that says easy wiring right there, and it has a picture of a car on the front. So that is strike two. Also, when you buy an easy wire kit, the headlight wiring harness plug-ins are color coded. These are all three black wires. So I know this is not easy wire. So Steve has emailed the guy or messaged him, and we'll see what he says, but I know for sure that's not easy wire. I could take pictures of this probably and notify easy wiring and tell them that there's a guy, you know, that's being fraudulent on eBay. But I mean, if you can get the same exact one right here for $67, he paid $147.25. But what's funny is when I went back yesterday and looked online at that same eBay item number listing, now they're $247.25. What's up with that? So as usual with Steve's car, we get into problems because I try to find parts to save him money, and all it does is end up causing me trouble. So you'd think I'd learned my lesson already on the car, trying to save him money and getting parts that are, you know, try to save that $5 or whatever, just ends up biting me in the rear. But it is what it is. You know, just going off the guy's 100% positive feedback score, which I noticed yesterday he only had 6 in parentheses up there, which means he's only sold 6 items, so he's a pretty new company. Or, well, his old one probably has a whole bunch of bad feedback, so he made a whole new one. I don't know, I'm just saying. So that's kind of where I'm at. Got to put lifters in the engine and then have to rip all the wiring out. And I'm not sure what Jim's planning on doing. I don't know if he's wanting to come when the lifters come in and get them on here and put in. So I don't know whether to rip all the wiring out of the car yet and rewire it. This is going to take me a few days to wire the car. So I don't know, you know. I need to get a hold of Jim when the lifters come in and just kind of see where he's at, because it's all about his schedule. He lives over by Jay, Oklahoma, and I live 15 minutes from Tulsa. That's a pretty long haul for him to have to drive over here. But anyway, guys, that's the update on Steve's car. Not really much to talk about, but just kind of stuck. So thanks for watching. So before people start saying, oh, your cam's flat, let me explain it to you a little bit better. So the key word was, it has a clack. When we very first started the car for the first time, that lifter was clacking and never went away. So usually cam lobes, if they go down, they can go down during a break-in if you don't have your proper oil in there and, you know, too high of spring pressure. I called Comp Cams a long time ago, and I talked to a guy on there, a tech guy, and what he told me was, when you put a new cam and lifter, hydraulic flat tap it, because they're prone to going flat, you don't put giant valve springs on there with, you know, heavy springs on there. That will flatten out your cam. They want you to remove your inner spring for 500 miles for break-in and 500 miles after that, or put a stock style spring on it and run it for 500 miles and then change it out. And everybody knows it's a pain in the butt to change valve springs on a car that are already on it. You know what I mean? You have to put air in the cylinder to air it up, and then it's a pain in the butt, especially if you got limited room in the compartment. So a lot of guys, you know, they'll put the ZDDP stuff in their oil, or buy the oil that has all the zinc and all the stuff in it, and think they're going to be good to go, and then their cam will go flat. And it's because they didn't change the valve springs out, you know, and put a stock style spring in it. I usually run a Z28, the old school style is what it used to be called, Z28 valve springs. That's what I run. I don't run heavy springs on my stuff because I don't blast down the drag strip at 7,000 RPM. I mainly drive mine and occasionally get on it and have fun with it. So anyway, I run a Z28 style valve spring, which is not a lot of, you know, spring tension, basically. But anyway, what happens when you're running an engine, your cam's spinning around on there, and your lifters are supposed to spin on the lobe. And if your valve springs are too tight or too heavy, or if you don't have the zinc and all the stuff for additive in there, it just wears down the cam lobe and dishes in the lifter. So if during break-in period you don't have a clatter, and there toward the end of the break-in period you're starting to hear your rocker arms clacking, your cam's probably going flat. But the cam's not going to be flat in this engine because it had the clack on the very first startup. Like right when we first started, you could hear it clacking. That rocker is oiling. It does have oil going through it. The lifter's putting oil up there through the rocker. However, something is up with that lifter. It doesn't have a good enough spring in it, or for whatever reason, it's just not, you know, fully pumping up or doing what it's supposed to do. So anyway, if you go back and readjust your rocker arms, and the clack goes away, and then you start running it and driving it, and you notice your clack comes back, your cam's probably going flat. But in this case, this is clacked since the get-go. And you can readjust it, start it, and it's clacking immediately. It doesn't readjust it and it goes away, and then after a little bit of time with it running, it comes back. This is immediately. This has the clack no matter how tight that rocker gets. So this is not a flat cam for anybody that tries to say the cam's flat.